esports podcast. We're going to talk to people that get paid to hit buttons and find out exactly what they did wrong in their life to end up here. I'm joined today by a close personal friend. You might know him from his Firebrand days back in Marvel 3, messing people up with unblockables and every single person complaining about him, or as the 5th place member of the Dragon Ball World Tour Finals in Paris, France. The number one Piccolo in the world, my very close friend, Apologyman. How are you doing today, Vineeth?
Good, bud. Thanks for having me, man.
What the? So little energy. Just think.
Sorry.
What, you trying to... This isn't like fucking Larry King Live, bro. You don't have to be like, well, you know, when I was first born. And then, I don't know, go into some diatribe about that.
That was nice of you. You were hyping me up. I appreciate that. No, I'm doing good, dude. I'm doing good. This quarantine's been pretty rough, but, you know, I'm hanging on.
You magically got a haircut, right?
Magically, by myself. I just got some scissors and a buzzer, and I just went ham basically. No, I had an interesting haircut experience. It was like the zero contact, like sanitized, like barber house call, but I got it way too short. But it's okay.
I mean, nobody's gonna see it until it grows back in. So.
Yeah, exactly. That's how I see it. It's really hot nowadays too, so it's like, you know, it's fine. I'm good.
Oh, I am dying. I look worse than I did during the World Tour. It's insane.
Yeah, I'm sure it's rough in SoCal.
Oh boy, it is super rough. LA for the first time ever doesn't have smog though. It's fucking insane.
Wow.
I am losing my mind, but I'm glad you're not going too crazy, man. You're staying busy. You've been streaming a lot more recently.
Yeah, a little bit more often. I'm gonna try to make it slowly, more and more consistent. That's the plan, and I feel like hopefully by July.
I feel that on a spiritual level.
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard to stick with it, especially with I mean, I have other obligations and stuff, which made it generally hard in the past. But just making it a routine in your life, I think, is like the biggest hurdle in terms of being a consistent streamer, I feel.
Yeah, especially when there's so many other people competing in the same like category.
That's true. That's true.
Especially, there's so many Dragon Ball Fighter streamers. It's ridiculous. I mean, like, I love most of them. Like, they're all great. Like, I love Alucard. I love Super Noon. I love Coach Steve. Knack, Sage. Sage is a Skullgirl streamer now, but you know, like it's hard. Like, not only does it's that much harder to break into it, but it's also like the consistency, and you have to stay on it. Like all of these people that have been doing it for 2 years now. Stuff like that.
Yeah, I agree. The way I see it though is like I think like viewing it as like Dragon Ball streaming at the beginning is fine, but like I think eventually like trying to build like your own brand so that you can stream whatever type of fighting game you want is kind of like the end goal for like a lot of the people doing it.
Agreed. I definitely
yeah. Like just among top Dragon Ball players, there's a ton of channels to choose from.
Of course. Well, we're gonna talk about many different fighting games today because you have been around the block. Because originally, my friend, and I know a lot of people don't know this, you were a Melee player, right?
That is true. Yeah, that is my actual true first competitive fighting game. If you consider it a fighting game.
Smash is a fighting game.
Yeah,
right?
No, it is. Like, it is. I definitely feed into that joke because it's funny.
It's a
fun
funny
to meme
joke.
On Smash. But yeah, it's a fighting.
Because that one's harmless, and then the Smash players smell thing that's a little bit more aggressive. So I'm more of a fan of that's not a fighting game. Video game is the video game. What are you doing?
The Smash player smell joke still makes me laugh. I know Smash players hate it and think it's just like bottom of the barrel humor, and it is.
It is.
I still like it. I don't care. I guess I like it in the sense that like they hate it. The more they hate it, the more like I enjoy it ironically, I guess. It feels the
I don't even love it ironically because like look, every joke in the world comes from a kernel of truth. And that kernel's a pretty big kernel of truth.
Bro, I've been to a fair amount of Smash tournaments and FGC tournaments. I can attest to that.
You can attest to that. And here's the thing, like it's not like the other aspects of like esports are like super like hygienically sound. Like
yeah.
I get it, bro. Like anime tournaments don't smell great either.
Oh
Like,
god, yeah.
I've never been to like a strict Marvel tournament. I assume that's better because there's a lot more like, lack of a better
Yeah,
term, normal people at Marvel
the
tournaments.
correlation of smell to like game is purely just age, I think.
Mm,
Generally I've noticed the younger the smellier, generally.
that
But
makes sense.
I feel like the smelliest like competitive event I've been to has to be Magic tournament.
I was about to say, when I used to go to
Uh,
Yu-Gi-Oh tournaments, it was like, I'm a big dude and I smell sometimes, like, and I know this, which is why like anytime I go to a tournament, I have 2 to 3 deodorant sticks in my bag. Like,
that's smart.
I take 2 showers to 3 showers a day. Like at Evo, I literally run back up to my room and shower to make
I've
sure.
definitely done the double shower at the tournament for
It's
sure.
it like I get it. It's hard to keep up on that at tournaments because you're running around, you're walking with friends, you're playing your matches, and you're traveling across this entire area that you're not super familiar with. Like, you can go to Evo every year, but you're not going to remember where everything is. Like,
Yeah, and also you're around like a lot of other people,
oh, it's
and
so hot.
that amount of body heat just contributes to more perspiration, and you get sweatier, and then you're stinky even though you already took a shower. You're like, damn. So
Damn, it clung on to me.
it'd be like that.
Like,
Yeah, that's smart,
I
having the deodorant on you.
like the headband that I wear at tournaments, I wear that to keep sweat out of my eyes.
Wait,
Like,
what?
it's
Really?
not just an aesthetic thing. Like,
Oh,
it's
I
literally
thought it was all aesthetic.
no, it's to keep my hair and my sweat out of my eyes.
I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah, and then when I take it off at the
It's
end of
also
the day,
partly aesthetic.
yeah, it's definitely partly aesthetic. Like, I love
Okay,
I
okay.
love my headband, and I stole it from a child a long time ago, but that's a story for another time.
Okay.
I've stolen a lot of things from a lot of kids, and I don't want to get too into it.
As long as you never stole a tricycle from a kid. Oh man.
I plead the
Come
fifth,
on.
dog.
The
I plead
tricycle
the
is
fifth.
sacred.
Is it? I feel like it's not. Nothing's sacred, bro. Nothing is sacred. All right. Well, getting a little bit back on topic. What drew you to Melee in the first place?
Melee, growing up, like Smash Brothers has always been like one of my favorite video games, just like
Of
to
course.
play.
Yeah.
Growing up, I feel like the mass appeal of Smash is just like kind of well
It is
understood by a
video
lot of
games, the
people.
video game.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
Ultimate is ridiculous. You can have Banjo Kazooie fight Joker from Persona 5. Like, that's where we're at as a society.
Yeah, it's absolutely insane. Like it feels like Smash Brothers is just like this video game character like museum essentially now, and it's
Oh,
and
yeah.
they really do a great job with all the characters like and like how they would play in the game, and it's honestly like Ryu in Smash Brothers, like he he looks better than he does in like Street Fighter 5 to be
Yes.
honest.
Agreed.
And yeah, so I've always loved Smash, and I played 64 like when I was a kid. Like my cousins all played it, and I'd play with them. And then eventually my uncle got me a Nintendo 64 for myself, like a Christmas, and like I was hooked on Smash since then. And then later, Melee came out, and I got the GameCube, and I loved Melee. And it honestly wasn't until like middle school, I'd say, and I met a player. He still competes to this day. A 2 GB combo. I met him in middle school, and we became like really close friends. We're still really close friends to this day.
Hell yeah.
And in middle school, we both like were pretty competitive with each other. Like in the first few times we hung out and like played Melee together.
I mean, you're a middle school boy playing Melee with
we
somebody.
had stupid rules and stuff. Like yeah, but I was like, oh yeah, hey, cool. We can play Smash. We can play some 1v1s. That's cool. We had items on,
Yeah,
But we had like
you're not like doing the competitive rule set. You're not like I banned
Yeah, I
Battlefield.
was like playing Mewtwo or some shit. Like anyway, I guess
Fox
he took
only Final Destination, no items.
yeah, from the beginning. I mean, so he actually was the one that took the first step into like the competitive foray, I guess. He found a video, which is like what every Melee player back in the day of is like their bridge to like competitive melee is the advanced techniques video, and it like teaches you like how to wave dash, how to like land and cancel your aerials, all
How to
this
turn
stuff.
melee into melee.
Yeah, exactly. And he
Yeah.
found that video and he showed that to me. He's like, "Yo, this game can be played competitively." I'm like, "Oh, okay, it's
Oh no,
cool."
my fingers.
Yeah, yeah. My poor middle school figures, and honestly, like I feel like half a year later, we were like addicted to we just played 1v1s. We found Smash boards, and we just like were and essentially competitive rivals with each other in Melee back in the day, and eventually we found like the local tournament scene for Melee, and his parents, sometimes my parents would take me to Melee tournaments, and like
Oh,
ever
that's
since
really
then
cool.
I've been hooked like to like competitive fighting games.
And how old were you when all that happened?
I was in 6th or 7th grade.
Oh my god,
So
so you were like 12, 13.
yeah, no, oh no, no, I was in 7th grade, I'm pretty
Yeah,
sure.
so you're like 13 years old.
Yeah, I was 13. I was
You were
13.
that kid. You were the kid that got their parents to
Yeah,
drive
yeah,
them to
yeah,
the
yeah.
melee tournament. That's dope.
Yeah, yeah.
And now what? You're like 26, 27. That now 14 years later, you're still doing it. And
Yep, I'm still doing it, damn
I have
it.
not
It's been a
grown as a
while.
person.
Well, I don't play Smash anymore, so that's somewhat of an improvement.
Aw.
But
Be careful,
yeah,
man.
yeah.
You're gonna get added on Twitter.
No, no, no. I still love Smash. Like that game is great.
Oh,
And
I know. I saw you get Inkling comboed over and over and over at Thunderstruck last
oh
year.
god, oh god. I thought you were referencing the Armada set at Genesis. I almost beat him
I have
actually.
not seen that set. No,
Yeah, in Smash Ultimate, the first Genesis, like my pool finals was versus him, and I almost beat him. I was like, oh shit.
I actually think I watched that because I think Jonathan was yelling at me.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But yeah, after Melee, I went on to other competitive fighting games, and it was partly because of a 2 GB combo. Once again, it was around the time that Super Smash Bros. Brawl came out, and
Okay.
basically what happened was Brawl wasn't really the competitive game that we grew to love like
It was
Melee
a much more
was.
defensive-based game. Like,
Right. Yeah. So I really liked Lucario, and I gave the game a shot, but like after like 3 months, I was like, this ain't it, man. This isn't the game that I used to love, and we kind of moved on from it and went to more traditional fighting games. And my first like traditional fighting game that I got really good at was the Blaze Blue series.
all right. Well, I want to get to that in a little bit.
Okay.
So, as everybody that like grew up with Smash Brothers, so what were video games already like a pretty big part of your life by the time that you picked up Smash?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I was a gamer,
You
as
were
they say.
little Indian boy wearing the T-shirt that no girls, I'm taken by gaming. Like one of those.
I definitely owned like a Piranha Plant shirt that said "Oh snap."
That's actually a godlike shirt, though. I'd wear that now.
I mean, I think so too.
Like, I'm talking about those old shirts that were like 3-panel comics, like Eat Sleep video games, like
Yeah, like stuff like that, or like
stuff that you cannot wear now under any circumstance.
yeah. My favorite shirt was the Legend of Zelda. Like it's just the Triforce shirt, and it's just like a green shirt. Like the most common combination was the Triforce shirt with the cargo shorts. That was
Oh yes, that was.
everyone knew a guy that
You
wore that.
still see that today, like
Really?
yes.
Oh god.
Like I've gone to like my WNF or like Dropkick or stuff like that, like any of my locals, and
We're
every
not
once in a while
evolved.
I'll see the man, and almost always they have a ponytail. Like not disparaging the ponytail, but they almost always do, and they're wearing the
It's just a
Triforce, the cargo
coincidence. Yeah.
shorts, and then it's like a 50-50 whether or not they're wearing sandals. And I get it, man. They're like comfy, easy to wear, and you got a bunch of pockets, but I'm too fat to fall into that stereotype. I can't do it.
I think you could pull off the ponytail.
I'm good. I am very, very good on that front. I will never have Nakiel hair, and I will never be able to pull it off. So, like, where were you? Like in a Nintendo household, a Sega household? What were you?
Nintendo for sure.
Nintendo.
I never owned a Sony console until the PlayStation 3, and that was when I got into Blaze Blue. I literally bought the PlayStation 3 to play Blaze Blue Continuum Shift, and before that, I was purely Nintendo. Like I had a Game Boy Advance, I had a Game Boy Color, I had the Game Boy Pocket, I had the Nintendo 64. I didn't actually own an NES or an SNES, but my cousin did, and I played it at his place all the time. And got the GameCube, the Wii, blah blah blah. Yeah.
But were video games like your only hobby as a kid, or was there something else that you were like super into?
Actually, I played a fair amount of tennis. Actually, growing up.
Oh damn.
Yeah. My mom put me in like a fair amount of like sports lessons. Is a very she just threw me in stuff like extracurriculars. You'll
Here's
like this
baseball.
thing.
Go for
Yeah,
it.
you'll enjoy this sport. You're kind of tall. Try basketball, and I didn't really enjoy it. And
Bro,
then
I
it's
played
like
basketball for 9 years and I never made a basket.
9 years. Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah, and my parents were like, "You either have to play basketball or baseball," and I was like, "I'm good. I'll play basketball." Well,
that's probably the better choice. Baseball
one was air
so
conditioned,
boring
and
to
one
me.
wasn't. That was literally my thought process.
But yeah, no, I played basketball like a little bit. I swam like for a few years, and eventually I like started taking tennis lessons, and I guess I got the most into that, and I
Okay.
played tennis for maybe like I want to say like 3, maybe 4 years, maybe 3 years, I'd say.
Okay.
And what happened with tennis was kind of sad though. I actually was very decent at like tennis, and eventually I tried out for my high school team. And in my freshman year, being kind of absent-minded, I forgot the day the tryouts were, and I was told that the tryouts were today, like the day that I was asking one of my friends. I was like, "Oh, are the tryouts? They're like this week, right?" They're like, "No, dude, they're like today."
They're
I'm
now.
like, "What? What?" So I didn't have my racket. I didn't have my gym shorts, but I still wanted to try out. So what I ended up doing was trying out for the team with like this borrowed, really crappy racket
Oof.
and jeans.
Most breathable of fabrics.
Yeah, yeah, which is not a good idea.
It
For
goes
how much...
gym shorts, then jeans, then sweatpants.
Exactly.
That's the order
Yeah.
of how competitive you can be in pieces of clothing.
Yeah. So anyway, I totally blow the like footwork part of the tryout section. Like
Really?
really bad. Yeah, obviously. But then we get to the round robin, like play each other in like games part, and I wreck shop. I destroy these kids that were varsity by like the end of like the high school year in my jeans, and none of them will ever like actually attest to it or own up to it that it did happen. But I own them. But I didn't make the team because I totally wore jeans, and she straight up told me like, "Wow, you had a really good winning record, but it doesn't seem like you're treating this very seriously, seeing how unprepared you came." So no, and I was like, "Damn." And then next year I joined badminton, and I never played tennis again.
Did you not explain to the teacher like I didn't know they were today?
Yeah, I explained to her. She's like, "Well, maybe you would." That it just showed more that like that's how little you cared. I'm like, "No, I played tennis for 3 years."
That's insane. I can't believe you smoke varsity kids and they look at you and they're like, no.
Yeah, no. And by like the time we graduated, none of them would like actually be like, "Not remember that happening." I'm like, "Yeah, it did. It totally happened. I beat you guys."
Well, joke's on you. Who's the pro athlete now?
Yeah.
Kids? All right, so you after your spurned tennis career, moving on into Blaze Blue, where you were not Apologyman, you were actually Wall Jump Man.
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah, not that you weren't Wall Jump Man through Smash, but this is when people started getting to know you, right? Like this is when you got a little bit more integrated in the scene.
Yeah, that's correct. my first tag was before Apologyman was Wall Jump Man, and I'd say the most like the time I got the most notoriety in competitive fighting games was in BlazBlue, in Continuum Shift. That's probably when I like had some of like my most like early success. And yeah, and people knew me for Wall Jump Man back in the day, which is a very bad name in retrospect. I literally,
It's a great name,
it's
and
terrible.
I will refuse not to reference it for all time.
It's so bad. I literally, being the Nintendo kid growing up, loved Mario, and I loved wall jumping in Mario Sunshine. And
What's your favorite thing about Mario Sunshine?
it was cool. I like doing it.
It's wall jumping.
And Jumpman was Mario's name in Donkey Kong before it was officially Mario. So I thought to myself, what better name than combining one of my favorite characters, Mario, with one of my favorite things to do in the game, wall jumping, Wall Jumpman. And that's what it was.
How was the transition from being a Smash player to a BlazBlue player? Was it hard? Was it a pretty like seamless transition? Like I know you were going in with your buddy 2 GB.
I wouldn't say it was totally seamless. 2 GB helped a lot. I felt like a lot for him. Like stuff just came quicker to him in terms of like gameplay. He was able to like explain to me like a fair amount and teach me a lot of stuff. At the beginning, I struggled a fair amount. I wouldn't say until like the end of like the first year of like playing BlazBlue that I started like really understanding fighting games at like a fundamental level. Like it took me a while.
Okay.
It didn't really click right away, I'd say.
I mean, that's how a lot of people are. Like I personally couldn't understand like neutral or pressure until the end.
It's really weird. It's like, what do you mean if I just jump at them and it's safe on their shield? Like
what do you mean that when I stand across from him, this is the most tense situation in any video game I've ever played?
I can't run backwards. What the hell is this?
This game sucks. So when you were that, it wasn't quite seamless, but it took that time. You had your success. Did you continue to play BlazBlue into the other games, or did you just stop after Continuum Shift?
Repeat that question. Did I continue to just play BlazBlue into?
Yeah. Did you continue to play BlazBlue like into Continuum Shift to Extend?
Oh
like
yeah, for sure. So I stuck with like purely BlazBlue until like I'd say Continuum Shift Extend. I only played BlazBlue like at that time. I didn't play any other competitive fighting game until Marvel vs. Capcom.
Until the big
one. Until that game. Yeah.
Until the game that you were probably the most well known for before Dragon Ball FighterZ, because I'm sorry, but I think he might have overtaken it at this point.
Yeah.
5 million copies being sold, but let's talk about it. Let's talk about your history in the Marvel community. What took you from the furthest possible thing from Smash Brothers?
Yeah, no, it's a pretty funny journey, honestly. Like,
like you went from you completely changed genres 3 times. Like you went from this like super high paced, fast platforming game to like BlazBlue is not like super footsies based, but like it's an anime fighter with an emphasis on like spacing and stuff like that. And then you move into Marvel vs. Capcom 3 with like there's so many viable teams in Marvel that I wouldn't say one of the most unorthodox, but you had a very unique team. And
I mean,
success
the biggest thing that like all these games had in common though was it had very, very unique characters in every game.
Yes.
Like their play styles for each character was so unique, and
so the uniqueness is what brought you to Dragon Ball, right?
Yeah. I mean, Piccolo's pretty unique. I think so. Anyway,
Piccolo is unique. That's why I like them.
Yeah, he's great. But yeah, along with that, like I'd say like the movement options as well is what kind of kept me within that type of genre. I never really enjoyed like Street Fighter per se that much, or like King of Fighters or Tekken. Well, Tekken has really cool movement actually, but I'm not. I never really gave it a shot.
You haven't been playing Tekken since Tekken.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, who knows? Maybe I'll give it a shot one day. But But yeah, like movement
Tekken 8
has
comes
always.
out and they're like, oh, it's all auto combos now.
Oh, finally, that's right up my alley.
We changed all the frame data. You're all starting for nothing.
Yeah.
Don't ask me for shit.
But yeah, like I always enjoyed the like good movement options that like anime fighting games offered through air dashing, double jumping, and stuff, and unique character designs, which kind of like I guess brought me from game to game that I was known for. But yeah, and with Marvel, I actually like how I got into that game was honestly kind of like a joke. Like I played it on the side as a joke because I thought the game was just really stupid. No, I honestly played the game purely like as a meme, and like all the other anime players, like I guess I'd say the scenes were more divided back then. Like anime players are like, you anime players, or like, oh,
I
you
mean, I
play
feel like
Street Fighter.
it's still that way to
There's,
like
it's still there. That stigma is still there, but it's way less than it was back in the day.
I feel like it's only way less in like specifically Dragon Ball, honestly, because like Dragon Ball
That's
was
fair.
this weird game that like everybody came into. We had like Leffen, a top Smash player, Reynold, top KOF player, Nakiel, top Blaze Blue player, Lord Knight, top Guilty Gear player, and Blaze Blue player.
Yeah. But that see that type of crossover just happened way less often though back then. Like me having that success like as a Marvel player was like a first time thing. Like it was a pretty uncommon thing for an anime player to like make that jump and do that well. So I played the game as a joke. I played this really fun, like this team I thought was really fun. It was just like it was a Frank West team with Super Scroll, and like all I did was I would hit you once with Super Scroll, and and I would combo into like his Inferno Super and like bring in Frank West, and he had this like level up mechanic where like at the highest level he would get these gigantic chainsaws attached to like paddle boards. It was hilarious.
Yeah.
And like he became like
I'm learning Marvel right now, and I'm playing Frank.
yeah,
West. I know exactly.
That character is so funny, and when he's at this level in this state, he's like one of the strongest characters like in the game.
Oh yeah.
And
I absolutely love characters that are like that.
yeah. They're
The
just cool.
Junpei Ioris and Frank Wests of the world, where you're like, this character fucking sucks. And then they do one thing right, and they're like, I'm the best character now, let's go.
Right.
You made fun of me in middle school, it's over.
Yeah, making fun of me with my plungers. Well, look at me now.
If you can't handle me at my plungers, you don't deserve me at my chainsaw.
Yeah, exactly.
So moving from this Frank West team, Super Scroll, always a staple for you.
Yeah, love him.
Love your boy. And then eventually moving, were there any in-betweens before the big one?
No, it was kind of just from that team to the next. There was a lot of teams I played in general in Marvel 3, just like experimenting, because like it was just a lot of fun to like play a bunch of different characters and team builds. Like the characters in that game are just a blast. And it was kind of like at the time I was like, I don't think like my Frank West team is gonna work in like the meta and how it's evolving at the moment. And like this was around the time where characters like Virgil and Morgan were getting a lot more play.
It was all starting to come together.
Yeah. So like fun, like goofy teams like Frank West and like on point Super Scroll were becoming like less and less viable and possible. So I played this Firebrand team, and I was actually inspired by a Marvel player back then who was known for a lot of like theory fighting. Her name's Sarah. She like was a huge like theory fighter for that game on the Shoryuken forums back in the day. And I remember her telling me about Firebrand, and like this character is ridiculous, has a ton of potential. This is like around the time Zach Bennett was getting a little bit more notoriety, and I was I think it was Drew Grimey, who was a Viper player, so Viper had this unblockable as well. This unblockable setup that Viper would do, and it was completely inescapable, only because I was playing Frank West. You would just call Vajra and like charge up her focus attack, and it would unblockable you. And I was like, huh. this isn't fun at all. I hate this. I want to do this, kind of, basically. And I was getting, and this is also when I was getting so sick of getting come back on by Virgil, and I was just like, okay, I need to create a team.
You hit that breaking point.
Yeah,
right?
basically. My scene, like NorCal, was such a strong scene for Marvel. It really drove me to make the team that I was most known for, which was Firebrand, Doctor Doom, Super Skrull. And it was just like a response to all this like cheap Virgil bullshit and unblockables that I received from like everyone in the scene. I was like, you know what? I'm gonna do it to you guys. I'm not gonna let you guys play. That's literally like it was just like I'm tired of this. I was having fun with
keep
Frank
a man
West.
locked up for so long.
Yeah, I was having fun with Frank West,
back.
but you know what? It's time.
It's time. I mean, look, like, and I've talked to you about this a bit. I actually brought this up with Romanova the other day, but when I came into Dragon Ball, like once I really started competing in season 2, because like season 1, I was learning fighting games. Like, there's no way I'm gonna do well. I'm not Hook Hand God. Like, I didn't learn that Raw Tag was broken already. So I started moving forward, and as I got to know like you and Supernoon and other people in the Marvel scene, it was like Dark Souls, where I was walking through this like desolate landscape where the party was over, and everybody's just telling me like the before times, man, the before times. We don't talk about Vineeth's Firebrand. We don't do it.
Yeah.
Just make fun of Vineeth and move on. You very much left your impact there. Did you have multiple Evo top 8s, or
yeah,
was it just
I had two.
Okay.
1 year I got 3rd place, and another year I got 5th place.
For one of the most like volatile games, and I don't mean volatile in a bad way. I mean in the way that like there was so many good Marvel players.
Oh yeah,
like,
yeah. It was very competitive.
Every top 8 would be like Justin Wong, Chris G, and then 6 different people. Like
yeah. It was a very competitive game back then, and it was hard to be consistent at that game.
Yes.
There was a lot of like things you needed to be prepared for, and there was a lot of cheap things that could just like completely turn the pace of the match around immediately, and you just needed to be prepared for them. It's part of why the game changed to a 3 out of 5 format, because it was just so erratic. And yeah,
I mean, you get touched once in that game and you die, or you get touched twice and then you win because you have Phoenix on your team.
Yeah, exactly.
That game, like watching it is like insane. I can't tell you what's going on. I just know it's hype. Like,
that's what I love.
And
about
I've never
it too.
seen like when you still see Marvel crowds now, like watching a Marvel tournament, it's still the most energy I've seen outside of Spain.
Absolutely. The scene for Marvel like is so passionate about their game. They just get so excited for it when anytime stuff happens, and like I feel like that feeling of hype is contagious, and like just how the game is designed, like the pacing of the game, and like how like it combined with its sound design, all these really cool characters, and like
the presentation.
It's just this
still looks good,
package.
And that game came out a decade ago,
right? Yeah, exactly. It's just really good.
That game aged better than Infinite.
Oh,
like,
for sure.
That game Frame 1 aged better than Infinite.
Yeah. When Infinite came out, it's like, oh, this didn't age well. It's only been 1 hour.
Remember when we first saw it? Remember we saw the trailer? We're like, yeah.
Oh man, I mean the first initial trailer before gameplay,
it looked godlike.
Oh man, I lost my mind. I like ran down my street. I was so excited.
Did you have like initial success in Marvel 3, or like you said, like you started out playing it kind of as a meme, as we all do from time to time?
Yeah. My initial success in Marvel 3 was like my first actual first tournament that I entered for Marvel 3 was Evo, my first Evo 2013. And I just entered for fun, and I made top 32. Like
it all just kind of happened.
Yeah, it was so I would say I had pretty quick success in Marvel 3. I think the game just, I guess, spoke to me on a spiritual level.
I mean, it happens, man. Like you see people that just enter a game at a tournament out of nowhere, and they get top 32, they get top 8, they get top 16.
Yeah, no, it
Never
happens.
heard of this
Sometimes,
person.
yeah, it really depends on the player's like skill set, right? Sometimes
Yeah.
it just meshes well with certain games.
Sometimes it's somebody who cheeses out and gets into top 8 and it's the funniest thing ever, and then sometimes it's somebody who's going to have consistent results. Like I've seen both happen. It's
Yeah,
just the way of the world.
yeah, absolutely.
Like Wi-Fi warriors can be either the most Wi-Fi or the least Wi-Fi people I've ever seen. And then sticking with Marvel, like how do you think Marvel like affected your interpersonal relationships? Because like every Marvel person I know talks constantly about the amount of friends they made in Marvel.
Yeah, man. The friends made in Marvel are like some of like the closest I've had like to this day. That scene and that game stayed alive and competitive for like like 7 years, 6 years, I'd say, like really strong. And like there's just so many people, like great people I've met throughout those years that really are super passionate about the game, and like they're huge homies like till this day. Uh, but yeah, like we all like love that game, and just there's just so many like really passionate, like pure Marvel 3 players, right? Like
Yeah.
there's people that played like Marvel 3 in other games, but like there were so many people that just loved Marvel, and like
Yeah.
yeah, I love all those dudes.
I mean, you see it like there is a hole that exists that hasn't been filled. Like
Yeah,
people have tried to fill it with like Dragon Ball Fighters, they've tried to fill it with Infinite, they've tried to fill it with Skullgirls, but there's so many of these players that like in top players in other games that are like playing and they're like, fuck it, I'm gonna play some Marvel 3 right now. And they'll just stream Marvel 3. It's ridiculous. Like that game, the cultural impact on it in the FGC is it's up
huge
there. Like
cultural
it's
impact for sure. And like people have so many fond memories of that game, even if they didn't play competitively. Like they just loved watching it, like back in the day. Like I can't count how many times people are like, "Yo, I remember like your Firebrand from like 2014, man. Like you're so sick. Oh, you played this Dragon Ball game? That's cool." I'm like, Yeah." It's like they just remember like Marvel 3 that much. Like they just loved Marvel 3, you know? Uh,
I mean, it's one of those games that it feels like it was the perfect storm.
yeah,
Like
yeah.
the game like Marvel's shitty, but it's shitty in the perfect way. Like
Yeah.
from a programming aspect.
Yeah,
Like
it is definitely a beautiful accident because the
yeah, it's a beautiful accident and and I mean that's how team fighters have always been
yeah,
up until that
yeah,
point.
yeah.
Like I'm not saying like it's an actual shitty game. I'm just saying like
Oh yeah, there's like things that are just like objectively broken and absurd
yeah.
about it, but they all just work together in like this really cool way.
And then you had people like Chris Matrix and Yipes coming in like from Marvel 2 and just really pushing at it and watching like Chris G become the new villain and Justin Wong somehow become a hero after being the villain of Marvel 2 and it's crazy, man. Like experiencing it and then going from Marvel, how was the transition to Infinite for you?
Actually, it wasn't that hard, I'd say. Marvel Infinite was God. It was interesting. I guess I immediately had to view the game in like a different light. A lot of the characters did like have some similarities to what they did in the past, like in terms of like just literally like there's these special moves existed before and they kind of do similar things, but like the removal of assists and like the movement completely changing, like the stone system, like all those other things definitely made it like a feel like a pretty new game. So
Yeah.
it took me a little bit, but not too long. I'd say I figured out that game like pretty quickly, honestly.
Yeah, less of like how was the transition like from a gameplay standpoint to like how did you feel about it?
Oh,
Like
I see.
how what were you
Yeah,
yeah.
I'd say like in my head, I was just trying to view it as a different game like the whole time. I'm like, this is not Marvel 3. This is its own game, and I'm going to view it as for what it is, and I'm just gonna play it and see how I like it. You know, I unlike a lot of other people at that time, wrote off the game purely because of its like poor aesthetics, lacking character roster. There was a lack of X-Men, and like there's a ton of bad PR surrounding the game. It overall seemed like pretty low budget. Blah blah blah. There's this huge laundry list of issues with that game, but I still, despite that, like viewed the game for what it was and like what was cool about it, and there was some pretty cool things about it, honestly. But I played it competitively for 3 months, I'd say, and I gave it a fair shot.
You gave it a fair shot and just wasn't.
And it just wasn't what I was looking for in a competitive game. I didn't like the meta or the future of like how that game played competitively, but I still appreciate some of like the things that it did. Like the tag system, albeit like pretty broken and crazy and probably needed some tweaks, a very good concept, like it was a good idea on paper.
Oh, yeah.
The stone system, another thing, like it was a good idea on paper, maybe needed more time, maybe if there was more testing, QA, more development time. I feel like there could have been something there.
Yeah, it was Infinite wasn't in the oven long enough.
Yeah, basically.
It's unfortunate, but we can all keep our fingers crossed for Marvel.
Yeah, if anything, I just hope they take it as a lesson, man. Like that is gotta be a lesson that you take from that game, because there was just so much like squandered potential there. Like I still think about like if that game really like knocked it out of the park. Like this was around the time Infinity Wars and Avengers was happening, was airing in theaters. Like imagine if this game was awesome. Like it would have been perfect timing.
Yeah, they could have escalated their own brand even higher.
Because
Marvel's the biggest thing in the world now. Like Marvel costs more than most countries. That's insane. Like,
yeah, exactly. Like I think the movie, like the final movie, like the second part of Infinity War, like what was it like it's like the highest grossing film, right? Ever.
It's the highest grossing film of all time. It's the first highest grossing film of all time to not be nominated.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah.
Because like, look, they're not trying to make like
it's just like people love Marvel, like,
and look, like I'm not like the biggest Marvel fanboy or anything. Like I loved Infinity War; it was great.
Yeah.
Like it was a super fun movie. Endgame was great too. Like it was a satisfying collection to a bunch of like B+ movies over the course of 15 years. Whatever, they're made by the guys who made Community.
Oh yeah, huh? Yeah, I forgot about that.
Yeah, it was the Russo brothers. And then moving from Marvel Infinite. Was there like a lull in between Marvel Infinite for you and DBFZ?
No, barely.
No, just right back into it, right back into the swing.
There was
put that sweet heroin in my veins, baby. I need my team fighters back.
I'd say from the time I officially quit Marvel Infinite to Dragon Ball, it literally lasted 2 weeks, maybe a week and a half. No, honestly. So because I quit Marvel Infinite at it was like Genesis 2018. Like I just quit after that tournament. I was like, this game in it. I don't like it. And then like a week and a half later, Dragon Ball came out, and the rest is history.
The rest is what we're about to talk about.
Yeah, there was a week where I was like, what is my purpose in life?
Just staring at the mirror. I was like, maybe I'll become a doctor.
And I look at the mirror and then I just see Piccolo, like, maybe.
So obviously you've had a lot of success in Dragon Ball FighterZ, going from the Tournament of Power. I mean, I'm sorry. Summit of Power. There we go. Man, it's been so long. I missed the Summit.
Me too.
Summit of Power, having success at multiple majors since then, and working your way all up now to the World Tour Finals. How has that journey been to you? How has Dragon Ball felt? Like, does it have a special place in your heart now, or is it just another fighting game?
No, it definitely has a special place in my heart. Growing up, I did like truly enjoy like watching Dragon Ball like as a kid. Like I do have
you were one of those people that were gonna like scamper home, turn on Toonami, and watch 5
episodes.
Yeah.
Like I definitely have a soft spot in my heart for Dragon Ball, and the series does like have like meaning to me. but yeah, I'd say Dragon Ball to me, like my success in Dragon Ball, it kind of just like proved to me that like I could be at this like high top level, uh, in not just Marvel, you know, because I only really was like a maybe like top 10, top 5 player in Marvel, but I guess I've never had like recreated that success in anything else. Not to say, honestly though, like I didn't really give it the same amount of effort I gave to Marvel, but I gave
But it was
my
nice to see.
100% to Dragon
It was
Ball.
nice to see that you could just do it
Yeah,
again.
and it
Like,
was very like satisfying to be able to prove to
I'm
myself
not
that I could do it
just
again.
I'm not just some guy that's carried by
Just some
an
block bullying people with
unblockable
Firebrand, yeah.
yeah.
I
I'm a
could I
guy
could
that's
get
carried by unblockabling people with Piccolo too.
exactly. Yeah, this is what to say. I could not let people play with Piccolo.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit about the first season 1 LCQ. Talk about your meteoric battle against Aqua.
You gotta start there. All right.
We're gonna. I mean, is there another Dragon Ball aspect you want to talk about?
No, yeah, sure, we can start wherever. My tournament like season like or like my first like pretty decent tournament success I'd say was like the summit like we were talking about earlier. I got like fifth at that, which was like
Yeah.
pretty cool. And then after that, you know, shout outs to Beast Coast, but I was picked up by them, and I was able to travel to like way more events after
Yes.
that, and I made a lot more
It's
top
so
eights after
expensive to
that.
travel.
Oh yeah,
Without the help of a
and there's just so many international tournaments for Dragon Ball.
Ooh, boy, I know it.
Yeah, so like you know, shout outs to Beast Coast and like letting them.
For those of you who don't know, me and Vineeth were kind of travel buddies for the entire second half of the World Tour.
Yeah, 2019 tour. Yeah.
2019 Cuba and Apologyman traveling around the world, just trying to find ice cream for 4 hours.
Good times, good times.
Good times. So that first like that Summit of Power, and then
like
there,
you know I made top 8 at CEO and UFA
with your legendary entrance.
Yeah.
Romanova was telling me all about it. How you guys went to Walmart to find like face paint.
Oh god, yeah. Like no, I made that entrance. I made that entrance happen in like 4 hours. Like, and that sounds like a long time, but it was not.
It's not.
It's not for like what I had to do. God, but yeah, I'm happy I made it happen. Shout outs to Timo.
Oh my god. Okay, moving on from there. What were there any other like standout tournaments that you remember from the first season?
No, I'd say CEO, Summit, UFA, like I said. What else? There was Couch Warriors Cross Up. There was the Australia Saga tournament. There was there's a couple other ones I'm kind of forgetting right now, but those like there was a fair amount of tournaments I placed very highly in.
Yeah.
That season.
Yeah, you've had pretty consistent success in Dragon Ball.
Yeah.
Like you've always made it to like at least top 16 of tournaments, if not the top 8.
Correct.
All right, now it's time to talk about you versus Aqua. How I want to talk about this because I was at the LCQ and I need help trying to explain what those tournaments were like.
Oh my god, those tournaments were actually hell on earth. Like
that was it changes a man.
It was truly a fighting game hell on earth. There was no water. It was a single elimination tournament. It was.
If you wanted water, if you realized there was no water early on and you went to go buy one, you could buy a mini bottle of Fiji water for $9.
Yeah, it was absurdly expensive. And on top of that, halfway through the tournament, they were sold out. You couldn't even shell out the absurd amount of money it cost for a water bottle to drink water in the venue at a point in it. So there was dehydration. Insane. It was pretty hot in there. It was single elimination. And the tournaments just happened one after another, and there was 4 of them in one day. of the
And every time you had to fight the Ginyu
and every time there was only one truth, one actuality of every LCQ for me, and it was that I fought Aqua after right out of pools every time.
Yeah, and if you couldn't beat Aqua, you couldn't move forward. And unfortunately, sorry to bring up a painful memory, but you were unable to qualify for that first season.
Yeah, yeah. In retrospect, that format was very poor, and Bandai and Dragon Ball, like the Dragon Ball Fighters people, they all realized that and fixed the tour format to be 20 times better in 2019. But yeah, at that time, qualifying through only like it was you could only win the tournament or you had to win one of the LCQs. That was the only way to get in.
It was absurd, and Kazunoko won 4 of them, which made 4 LCQs happen.
God, I blame Goichi.
How do you think that affected your mindset going into season 2?
I'd say like I didn't really view the LCQ as I don't want to say like that it was a illegitimate tournament, but it kind of was an illegitimate tournament. Tournaments because that's just not the format of any bracket or major throughout the year. It just isn't. So I didn't really view my performance at the LCQ with that much. I didn't put it to that much regard. As much as my overall season that year, and I had a great season. I felt I made top 8 at like a majority of events and top 16 at a majority of events. So
yes, you did. You traveled to a lot of different tournaments. Season 2, all the way down to the wire, where the season 2, for those of you who don't know, worked off a point system, much like every other fighting game world tour. And it was hyper competitive. Like it was very, very competitive for a lot of people. How it worked was there was 4 or 3 Saga events and an LCQ. And if you won the Saga event, you made it in. And if you got second at the Saga event, you basically made it in. And there were 16 slots total. And people were scrapping and scraping for those last like 8 slots. Like back and forth. And as even if you're making like top 8 at every tournament like Vineeth was here, like you were still like in that danger zone of like top 16. Like, and it was very, very hard. And how did it feel when at Japan Saga you realized you qualified?
Static. Like for me, like that's the season was like a little rough on me just from like just balancing like my life from like traveling that much. I traveled maybe to like every other week I was traveling to a different tournament on some in a different country. Exactly. So it was very hard on me mentally and still balancing that with my college. And it was a lot, and I was also like in like a character crisis a bit as well with so like the constants on my team were like Piccolo and Super Saiyan Goku, but the character that I was really struggling with to drop at the time was Tien, and I was really trying to make the switch to Teen Gohan, who was just kind of the stronger choice in the meta at the time, and like making that switch along with like really like just being on the cusp of qualifying, it was a lot. It was stressful for sure, and it went down to the wire to the very end. Like I think it was like between maybe 5 people, like depending on our results in the final tournament in Japan Saga, it could have completely.
I know. I was in that 5.
Yeah, you were one of them, and like it could have gone, and it could have gone either way. Like honestly.
And then everybody shit the bed.
and then it kind of worked out.
That tournament was hilarious. Every single person shit the bed.
Yeah, it was something.
Like not even like the people that like were safe. Like even the people that were safe shit the bed. Like they were just like, fuck it.
Yeah, dude. Oh man.
I vividly remember you popping off at Japan and losing your mind, and I like to take away my artistic integrity. I was super happy for you, man. Like, and then watching you compete at the World Tour Finals, how was that experience? Like,
Oh
going to
man, it was
Paris
great. Oh man, it was a lot. It was a lot of fun. Shout outs to Red Bull. Like they really took care of us. They really like pampered us. They gave us a bunch of like a bunch of like Dragon Ball like swag stuff. Like they was like this freaking like super dope like book bag that I have that's like Dragon Ball themed, and like they just gave us like a bunch of cool like merchandise. They gave us our own rooms, and we just like uh got to really explore Paris. They took us around, like they had like translators, and they really just like made all the players feel very comfortable, like for like a week. And we just like like with the outside of like the media stuff that we had to do, we just got to enjoy ourselves in Paris, like on like Red Bull's dime, basically. It was awesome.
Oh shit.
Yeah, yeah.
That's really, really cool. And how was the tournament itself? You were fighting against some of the best players in the world, and were you super nervous going in? Were you feeling confident? Like, where were you at?
I'd say I felt like pretty confident, because we had our pools drawn like a fair amount of time in advance. Generally, how I succeed in tournaments is when I'm able to prepare for my specific opponents I need to play. So like if I know my path, right? Like if I know who I have to play, then I'm feeling way more confident in how I do in the tournament. And I knew the first three players I needed to play, guaranteed,
Yeah.
like off the rip.
And after that, you can just kind of play it by ear, but you have that momentum.
Yeah. I can really prepare, and that's just how I succeed the best.
Yeah, and you made it all the way into top 8, and then historically during season 2, there was a player that you had a less than favorable record against, I would say, and his name was Supernoon, and then you had to fight him in top 8. How did you feel going into that match? Because I know you are the most avid Kid Buu hater I know.
God, yeah. Yeah, fighting Supernoon is like always pretty difficult, just like matchup wise purely. He's like a very aggressive player, like on top of just how difficult that matchup is. And you can kind of play it like how Kid Buu kind of beats Piccolo is he really just like out neutrals him with like his superior key blasts, and like just controlling space with like his normals, like his stomp and stuff. So like you combine that with like this hyper aggressive player, and like there's just so much to think about. It's just really hard. Supernoon can like really smother you. So yeah, like going into that match, like I knew I could do it. But the thing is like even though he beats me usually, like it goes back and forth. Like the matches are close, I'd say, even though he generally had edged it out against me. But I knew I could beat him, and after like the first match, which went to timeout, which was crazy. Like the first game, I realized that he was like pretty nervous, honestly. Like I realized he was playing pretty off, and in the second game, I just like took advantage of that, and like played pretty confidently and beat him.
Then you got to seize the moment.
Yeah. Man, it was crazy because
fighting games.
he was beating me. He was beating me really bad, and then I just like made a comeback, and he just started making a bunch of weird decisions. But yeah, that's just how it goes, man. It's tough in the moment.
Then we all know how it goes at this point. You got 5th in the world.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, I tried to schedule this podcast interview for 2 seconds after you lost, but Red Bull had that already locked down. So sorry, I had to wait.
God, I hope majors learn moving forward that you should not interview the losers. even if it meant interviewing I get that they want to interview somebody, And obviously you can't just interview the winner every time because you're just gonna interview Goichi like 10 times throughout the bracket. Hey, how you feeling? Like,
I won
I beat
Dragon
him,
Ball.
and now I'm gonna beat him. Like, it's like, so I get that. Like, they want the players to have like some words, but it's rough, man. Especially right after you lose. So I don't know. Maybe they can find a better timing to interview the players.
Yeah, and what are you looking forward to when season 3 one day actually starts in 2025?
Oh, 25. Oh man, I miss my homies. Honestly, I miss seeing you, bro. I just miss like playing with people in person, man. More so than the game, honestly. Like yeah, I miss competing. I miss like hellzoning people and stuff in person, but like I just miss hanging out with my friends, honestly.
Yeah, how do you think Dragon Ball has affected your interpersonal relationships? Is it a similar thing to
I'd say
Marvel,
like
where just
competitive. Yeah, it's pretty similar to Marvel. Like there's just so many close friends I've made like through the game, and it sucks not being able to see them because usually I would see them at events or sessions or whatever.
Nakiel hasn't made fun of you in months. It's ridiculous.
Feels yeah, I miss it. I miss it so much.
All right. I is there anything else that you want to talk about in your history? Anything else in your life that you want to let the people know about?
No, not really. I'm not a furry because I play Lucario and Smash Ultimate. Don't get it twisted. I just like the Pokemon, all right? Uh, no, no, honestly, yeah, my fighting game history has been pretty interesting, and I've enjoyed every bit of it. And yeah, I hope I can just keep doing well, keep
Do you think you're ever going to stop playing fighting games?
I feel like I'll never, even if like my competitiveness and like my competitive drive goes down a bit, I think I'll always still play fighting games no matter what, even when I'm like 60 or 70. Like, oh, the new Marvel versus Capcom 8
Marvel 5 came out.
Oh yeah, Marvel 4 finally came out. Yeah, like I feel like I'll still be playing even when I'm older.
Well, Vineeth, thank you so much for joining me here today on what is going to be the first released episode of Behind the Buttons. I very much appreciate it, man.
Nice.
And I hope you had a good time.
Yeah, dude.
Everybody, you can follow him at Apologyman on Twitter, APOLOGYMAN. You can follow him at twitch.tv/Apologyman or by his team Beast Coast. They do game night streams from time to time. You can go check out the VOD where me, him, LK Flux, and Kizzy K play Jackbox. And it gets real weird because we realize 1st to 5 is too many games.
It was fun, though. Yeah.
My name is Kuba, and this has been Behind the Buttons. Thank you very much for tuning in.